Hello, hello, hello.
Hello? Hello? Hello?
Doing a song. This one.
Hello. Is that okay now? Yeko sawa? Are we live? Please share the link with me on WhatsApp so that we can share it. Admit you. Unmute yourself. Great. Put the YouTube link on chat box for Zoom and send me on WhatsApp. James, please unmute yourself just so that for Q&A we are assured that you can be able to hear us. Someone on... can you control the cameras? You are a co-host, yes. You mute, stop video for the participant. There's a participant, amezima. There's someone who had this video. Yes, tutawakisha. It's okay? Sawa, thank you. So utakaa chini, will introduce you. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Yeah, thank you so much. Welcome. Those of us who are joining us physically, those of us who are joining online, welcome. So this is the day that the Lord has made, Sindio. So we want to pray for us, open with a word of prayer, a volunteer. Or if we could have... you want to pray? Thank you so much.
Okay, let us believe and pray. Mighty everlasting Father, I come before you. It's a wonderful evening. Thank you for the strength throughout the day. You have been our guide. You have been able to gather here. Whatever we're going to learn and listen, may you help us to put it into practice into our lives, to improve our lives and better the way of our lives. In the mighty name of Jesus, we pray and believe.
Amen. Thank you so much, our club member, for... Yeah. So I want us to appreciate those who are here. Sawa sawa. Do we have someone from Health and Environmental Club, Multimedia University? Anyone from Health and Environmental Club, Multimedia University? Do we have someone from the School of Science, Multimedia University? Yes. So I'll go to the protocol. Cindy, do we have student leaders from the same club, association? If I could just have them introduce themselves. Just come. Please, the student leaders for multimedia. You have to be here because the microphone for Zoom is here. So just tell us your name, the course you're doing, and your expectation on behalf of our people. Cindy, thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Sylvia Okongo, the School Finance Secretary. I pursue Bachelor of Commerce, but love sciences. So I came here to learn, at least to take home something, which I'll be able to share with my colleagues back at school. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Finance Secretary, for, is it Muso or Muso? Musa. Okay, you have a very interesting name. Yeah. Now, with the Musa being there, we also have a club name here that is almost resembling a political party. So do we have Wikanu members here? Yes. Do you have a leader to introduce his team or her team? I can see the secretary for Wikanu.
Hello everyone. I'm Ivy Harriet, a second year pursuing law, and I'm the secretary for ENQUIRIES. I'm happy to see you all, and I hope to interact. We will interact and you'll learn more. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Madam Secretary. I've just seen the president coming in. Hadley, please come and say hi to your people.
Oh, hi guys. Mko aje? Mko poa? Okay, my name is Shiwani Hadley. I'm a third year doing international business in Nazarene. I'm the chairperson of Wekanu. I know most of my members, some are trying to submit assignments and stuff. You know, the semester is coming to an end. So thank you, you guys. I can see you in large numbers. Feel welcomed.
Thank you so much. Great. And we have the elected leaders incoming, those who are waiting to be sworn in. Do we have any representative for the student government here? Outgoing team? Incoming team? I can see the campaign manager is there. So we acknowledge what you've done. And thank you for holding peaceful election. They did election yesterday. And I'm glad what these guys are doing because we've produced, can I say 80% of the current student government at NU belong to the Club of Environment. See, that's a good achievement for the association. Thank you so much, Hadley, for the leadership. Now, we are going to the next step. I want to recognize the presence of Mr. David Jones, who is our university counselor from the Dean of Students Office. Just come and say hi to our people. We have online students. Most of us know David Jones just through the inners and the number that is scrolling there. So meet David Jones.
Thanks, John Henry. I was trying to do like I do at church, and that is sit out of the way, and so I'm not recognizable. But it didn't work. Thanks for coming. Thanks for being here. Thank you for inviting me. Dr. Jones, Dr. Festus, welcome. We hope to learn a lot about this particular segment of our environment, of the creation, and how we can better steward it and take care of what we need to take care of. Sendio. Okay, enjoy.
Wow, thank you so much, Mr. Jones. I want to recognize the presence of the online audience. Is there anyone who wants to say greetings to us? You can unmute your microphone and say something. Those on Zoom? Hi. Yes, how are you? Thank you so much, Alice, and thank you for joining us. Is there any other participant who wants to say hi to us? Yes, I can see James Kibet. Good evening.
Privileged to have joined this biodiversity loss discussion because it's part of the core subjects that we're learning in our degree course. Looking forward to getting more knowledge, sharing experiences, and also as part of our academic requirements, I hope to gain more. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. James Kibet. We acknowledge what you guys are doing. I can see someone all the way from not Amboseli, from Savo. Martin, are you able to say something to us from Savo?
I don't know whether you can be able to hear me traveling, but I'm glad to join you as I travel. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, and you are welcome to this discussion for today. For those of us who are here, we have audience live on Zoom, and also we have audience live on our YouTube channel, that is African Nazarene University. Okay? And at African Nazarene University, we say that what begins here transforms the world. And that is what we try to replicate. So time or venue should not be a limit to us. Okay? We can do this thing and impact more and more people. Sawa sawa. So I want us to, before we welcome the speaker, okay? Before we welcome the speaker, can someone maybe come and tell me, apart from the leader who talks, what is your expectation? What, or maybe what were you wondering what this biodiversity loss is? Anyone from African Nazarene University? Chairman, what is biodiversity? Kuja tu, say your course, I know you are not doing environment. So just say what you think biodiversity is and what you think biodiversity is, or loss of biodiversity is, sir.
I'm a second year student taking Bachelor of Commerce. For me, biodiversity is the all different kind of life, let's say animals, plants in an area where we can find. So the loss of biodiversity is how these things continue to deteriorate in the environment that we are living.
Wow, and which course do you do? Go and feel change of program. It needs to be the environment, Cindy. Yes. Anyone from multimedia? I know you guys are IT, Cindy. Huh? Yes. So anyone who wants to tell us his expectation or a different definition of biodiversity? Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Good evening. So I'm Jacob, Multimedia University, taking mathematics and computer science. And basically, let me explain the whole meaning of biodiversity loss. Actually, bio is life, and when we talk biodiversity loss, we are talking of all living things. So, in general, the word is the decline or disappearance of all living things that inhabit the planet. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we clap for Yes. Now, you've seen what has come in, sindio? Okay? So before we go to the next session, I want us to do a physical exercise before I welcome the person who is going to welcome the guest. Sawa sawa. So can we all rise up? Can we all rise? Can you all rise? Raise your index finger on your right hand and raise it up. Okay? Now, in the same, I need someone to come and catch for me this. I need assistance here. Kuja. Oh. Come. Huyu ni wa camera. Okay. So you know the symbol that this one used to represent, sindio? Now we are not going to go that way. So this is your right index finger, sindio? Your right hand index finger, sindio? Can you, with your left hand, can you put just on your chest? Yes, like this. Kuja side so that. Okay? Now, put your left hand the way it is to your elbow. Yes. Now, put your index finger, that is the right one, the one you are carrying, below the person next to you. Below the, yes. Okay? Yes. Raise. So make sure that your right index finger is under the left hand of the person next to you. Yes. Is everyone there? Raise it higher. Higher. Now you want to check at your concentration. Sawa? So when I say an odd number is divisible by 1. Oh, let me go to an even number. When I say an even number, you grab that index finger of the person next to the, yeah, you grab the index finger, sawa? But you also make sure that your index finger is not grabbed. Okay? So if I mention a number that is divisible by 2, that is the, hey, you are revising? So, when I say an even number, you grab. If you don't, you get in and you get punished. Sindio? Aya, number... Okay, an even number is divisible by 2. Sindio? Number 7... number 141. Shh. Oh, wait. Number 152. Who has been caught? Who has been caught? Yes. Okay. Now that was trial, sindio? Now, when I mention a number that is divisible by 3, you grab. If it is not divisible by 3, you maintain. Sawa? Aya, number 131. Where? 131. Number 152. Mathematicians. Okay. Number, concentration. Number 999. Thank you so much. Have a seat. Thank you, guys. And unfortunately, our online audience were not able to participate. But I just wanted us to have some concentration. Sindio? Sawa. So, African Nazarene University is a university that is that is legal, of course, which means we have been authorized by the government of Kenya to operate, okay, and offer several courses. Sawa. So we do have over 52 courses that are offered under 5 different schools. We have School of Religion, we have School of Business, we have School of Law. Is it Law School or School of Laws? School of Laws or Law? Law School or, okay. So we have Law School, then we have School of Humanities, and we have School of Science and Technology. So all the 52 courses fall under those 5 schools, okay? So in the School of Science and Technology, it has 2 departments. It has Department of Computer Science that houses BBIT and BCom. Then it has Department of Environment and Natural Resource Management that houses 4 courses. We have Bachelor of Science in Environment and Natural Resource Management. We have a short course on Environmental Impact Assessment, and we have another short course on Strategic Environmental Assessment. We are trying to relaunch another course for Masters in Environment and Natural Resource Management, okay? So, with all these 52 courses, we have students. And these students, apart from academic, they also enjoy co-curricular activities. And that is why we have the Wildlife and Environmental Club of Africa Nazarene University, but it is patronized under the School of Science and Technology in the Department of Environment and Natural Resource Management. So what I was trying to do is get the information from the general to why we are here. Sawa. So at Africa Nazarene University, we have 3 core values. That is character, competency, and community. Part of why we extended the olive branch to the community around is that we don't want to only have that information to ourselves, but we spread to our community members. And that's why we have you, and we have members of the community, not only Nazarene students online. Sawa. Then competence is that whatever you learn in class, how can you use to solve the community's issues? Okay? Are you competent when I take you to Kenya Wildlife Service, when I take you to KEFRI, when I take you to whichever field you are in? Can you be of value to that specific community? Then character, what are you able to do when you are alone and it will be of benefit to, okay? So don't say that we are too strict, or don't say that why are these people, we are trying to model you in a way that the community will be able to accept you and be able to accommodate you. Okay? So those are our 3 core values. And I will want to welcome the head of, or the chair of the Department of Environment and Natural Resource Management, Dr. Sharon Jones, to welcome our speaker.
Hi, good afternoon. Welcome. We're glad to have you here. And we're also honored to be hosting this event and that we have gotten a turnout that you have come. So welcome. I know holidays start tomorrow, but I hope this will be a nice addition to your holiday. It's our honor to have our guest speaker today. That's Dr. FESTUS IHWAGI. He's coming from Save the Elephants organization. How many of you have heard of Save the Elephants? Just one person. Okay. Save the Elephants is one of the oldest conservation organizations here in Kenya. And they have done a lot of work in locating, identifying, and tracking elephant movements across Africa. All the way from Kenya to South Africa, they have those elephant movements. Dr. for many, many years, is it 17 years? 17 years. So he has a wide wealth of knowledge on elephants, as well as all of those biodiversity issues that are affecting not just elephant populations, but our wildlife populations at large. And once our wildlife and our resources are affected, then our way of life and quality of life also gets affected. So I don't want to take too much time. We are a bit behind schedule. It's my pleasure to welcome Dr. FESTUS IHWAGI. Doc?
Thanks a lot, Sharon, for inviting me to give a talk to the students. And just to give a little bit of my background, I'm a zoologist. My background is botany and zoology. But before I even go there, my grandfather used to tell me everyone has their age, they can say long, long time ago. Growing up in the 80s, I was born in the 70s. Growing up in the 80s, I grew up with my grandparents out there. I remember very well how the environment used to be like. My grandfather would predict the next rainy day, like very accurate, superhuman, and it would just happen at that. As soon as it rains, lots of flowers, all colors would bloom everywhere. Those memories are still there. Down the line, almost 40 years, everything is different. I grew up knowing or seeing the weather, the environment, everything that's happening. So it's not a surprise that I ended up doing biological sciences. It's by choice that I decided to do a course in biology. And when Sharon asked me to come and talk about conservation issues, she told me, you are going to be talking to a group of students who are doing natural resources, but also there will be lots of other students in the audience. And I was like, okay, if the audience is going to be this big, I think I have to be very general in what I say. My pet subject is elephants. I've been working for Save the Elephants for the last actually close to 18 years now as the research manager and also the head of the GIS unit. I have two faces. I am a biologist and as I'm an IT person. I'm the head of GIS at Save the Elephants. And most of the work I do on a day-to-day basis is mainly data analysis. When Sharon told me to talk about biodiversity laws, I was like, oh, I can talk about it. And then I said, okay, I can give it a good try. But when I started doing my notes, putting my notes together, it became apparent I probably bit more than I could chew. This particular topic cannot be discussed in just 1 hour. And you say you have done justice to it. If I start telling you about the causes of biodiversity, I cannot possibly exhaust, but we know the main causes. Habitat loss and fragmentation, infrastructural developments, land degradation, alien species invasion, all this list. We can't possibly exhaust all this list in an hour, but I thought as a general outlook, I could give you just an outline of what are the impacts of all these activities, or some of these activities, especially the top like 5 of them. Habitat loss and fragmentation with the cases of Mara ecosystem, infrastructural development in Savo. I take you up to northern Kenya, land degradation issues, alien species invasion, climate-induced changes in the lake levels in our Rift Valley lakes. And I hope that within a few minutes that we have, we can get something. Let's dive into Mara. This is Mara. This is a very nice, beautiful picture of elephants in the Mara ecosystem. And in Mara, we work very closely with an NGO, an organization called the Mara Elephant Project. So we do lots of monitoring on the ground, not just for elephants, but even other activities. So in Mara National Reserve is surrounded by lots of community conservancies. And one of the biggest challenges there is habitat loss and fragmentation. If I was to give an example of how biodiversity is affected by habitat loss and fragmentation in Kenya, I don't think of another better place I could give an example apart from Mara. Mara is a landscape that is cross-border. We have Serengeti part of it. We have the Kenya side of it, the Masai Mara. And from the background, you can see the very close interface between elephants and all other wildlife and humans. And one of the most important challenges in this landscape has been the interaction between wildlife and the people outside there. On your screen here, I have put for you some GPS tracking of elephants. What you see in dark brown are tracks of individual elephants. I took this 5-year data set, and the green arrows you're seeing are what we envisage as corridors, connectivity routes between in and out of the reserve. The green line that you see around here is the National Reserve itself. The dark green line, and the lighter green line is the corridors. Mara National Reserve is marooned by lots of farming activities. What you're seeing on this map in red is mapping of individual settlements. Every single red dot you're seeing here is a human settlement, right around the reserve here. And just above it, I want to put for you another layer. I think it's sticking. Sorry, the slide is sticking. Yep. The yellow that you see on this map is agriculture. Agriculture all around Mara National Reserve, such that even if you were to approach this National Reserve, you'll have to go through very highly densely cultivated area. Besides the agriculture, sorry, my cursor is moving a bit slower. This is what is happening just outside the national park. Fences. Fences of all manners. Electric fences, very simple fences with just barbed wire. Some of them will be electrified for some time, others are not electrified all throughout. Some of them, like you can see on the bottom left, are actual enclosures for wildlife, for livestock at night. But all in all, they all impede the movement of wildlife within the landscape. This particular map, you see patches from blue to red. This is actually the date the fences came up. As early as 1985, the blue patches are the areas that were fenced. As you come up, the yellow part of it in the middle, that's around 2015. The red patch is fences that came up as late as 2020. That means that the last 3 years, between 2019 and 2020, around 2021, Mara has just been marooned by fences. So everything you see in red patch is a fence that was put in the last 3 years. And this is one of the iconic landscapes. It's actually hosting one of the wonders of the world. So what the fences have, the result is this. Wildebeest migration, not just wildebeest alone, giraffes, all other animal, wildlife moving around, the fences are just but snares. You walk around the landscape, this is what you would find. Carcasses that possibly died a few months ago, they're hanging there. And the greatest wildlife migration to Tanzania, the wildebeest, once they move out of the national reserve, getting back into the reserve and then to Tanzania is a challenge. We have lost so much of the wildlife in this landscape. So much that it has actually been at the center of studies, and since 1970s, we have lost 30% of wildlife within the Mara landscape, up to 30% decline in most of the species within the landscape, while at the very same time, livestock more than doubling. So the livestock is taking over. And why is this happening? Those of us in Nairobi, we are very fond of having a piece of land, a plot. I want a plot. We are all trooping down to the Mara. These fences that you're seeing up there is people who have just decided, I want a plot in the Mara, this is the time to go. We all troop down there, and because you're from Nairobi, you don't believe that you can leave a landscape that is open there with your plot. You go there, the first thing you do is to put a fence. The next time someone else comes, you put a fence. So all these patches you are seeing are actually lands that were purchased possibly in the last 5 years. We are losing the Mara ecosystem. However, all is not lost. There's been efforts by the communities. This one actually is screenshotted from one of the daily newspapers, the Standard newspapers. The communities have realized that there is a lot that needs to be done in terms of opening up the landscape. They have come together, trying to pull down the fences. It is working very well, especially with the local communities. But those of us in Nairobi are giving these people a hard time. Because we buy, we go, we fence. We buy, we go, we fence, and then we move away. There's nothing we have even fenced. This is one of the major challenges of fragmenting the habitats. Moving further, I would like to give you an idea of the effects of infrastructural developments. And I'll take through a tour of Tsavo, before heading to Samburu. This is a picture taken in Tsavo, very beautiful landscape. Tsavo hosts Kenya's largest elephant population, about 12,500. And as you would expect, one of the iconic developments in the history of Kenya is the coming of the standard gauge railway line. It's quite a beauty, but it's traversing right through one of the major habitats. Already there was an existing railway line there that you can see, the dark line on the left. There's a big elevated standard gauge railway line. There is already a linear a line of fence on the other side, and the old highway here. This is all very beautiful, and we need it for development. Take it from me, we need the development, but we need to have a balance between the two. Right in the bushes here, you may not be able to pick it with your eyes, but here is a herd of elephants. A herd of elephants trapped on one side, and they need to go to the other side. So what's the effect? When you look at it from a different angle, in some areas we have some good underpasses, naturally where there was a water course, or there was a road that is passing by. This is a very good view of a spot somewhere in Tsavo, at Tsavo National Park. You see the BC Highway on the other side. And most important in this picture, what I would like you to spot in this picture is the settlement right between the highway and the SGL. And this is one of the challenges that came up as soon as this SGL was constructed. We had people coming to settle right under there. And the effect is that even if elephants and any other wildlife was to cross through, we use elephants as the example because they are the keystone species. Wherever elephants pass through, all other species most likely will be passing through there. So when we are using the elephants, it's a proxy for other wildlife species. So when we have that blockage, this is eventually what you end up with. Wildlife challenges in crossing the road. That's a bull elephant captured by our colleagues from Tsavo Trust, approaching two trucks there. Just hope the elephant is able to get through. And this is just what was able to be captured by someone with a camera. There is a lot that is happening. Luckily for these elephants, this day was not bad for them. They never got into an accident. They were able to cross to the other side. But now think of it as an animal. You have to cross the road like this by day and night. But all is not rosy. Deaths have happened. That's the same SGL as I'm showing you at the top there. Here is the old meter gauge railway. This one happened around 2017. 2 elephants crossing. They couldn't cross easily. They actually get first stuck between the tracks because there's a fence that is in between there. By the time they are crossing, they don't even see. They were not even hit by the SGL, the main train. They were hit by the older meter gauge train. Not just the elephants. Every other day, we are losing wildlife along the highway. Around 2018, I did a map of all the wildlife kills along the highway, data consolidated from various researchers within the landscape. And you can see just one small section here. Each dot represents a wildlife animal, a wild animal killed by an animal. This is 2018. This is the number of animals we are losing on the highway. Let's transition a little bit and move further north. Mount Kenya. All is not lost. Unlike in Tsavo, where we were caught flat-footed in terms of data availability. When the SGL was coming, we had not started even tracking elephants down there. But in the north, we had already started a tracking program, which has been there for almost 25 years. At the backdrop here, you see Mount Kenya. And here at the bottom here, you see Lewa Conservancy. And this is a place called Suboiga, on your way from Nanyuki to Isiolo. That downstrip there. Elephants used to just cross over into the Kisima wheat farms there. This is past Timau there, those who are familiar with that side. But with the intervention of Richard Branson, the Virgin Atlantic, with the intervention of Richard Branson, an underpass was constructed. The first underpass to be constructed, and there's no other one that has been constructed since then. And we had to encourage elephants to move right through the underpass. Just going back one slide, the underpass is just right here. The green dots you're seeing is the tracks of one elephant that had already learned. The red one you're seeing is an elephant that was yet to learn to use the corridor. But eventually all of them ended up moving through. It's quite interesting how we got to encourage the elephants to go there because elephants like following their traditional routes. When we got this one constructed, the question came, okay, we have done the corridor, but how do we get the elephants to come in here? And I was actually invited for a meeting, and I said, okay, this is where we have to use our science. We have to get these bulls to adopt this route. How do we do that? So I told them, okay, you know very well, bulls move for various reasons, one of them being to look for mates. Let's get urine of elephants in estrus and sprinkle there. And then they were like, okay, that's a very good suggestion, but how do we get it? Okay, it was again back to me. Okay, very simple. Go look for an elephant that is in estrus. When it has urinated, scoop that urine in the soil, go sprinkle the soil along the corridor, and it will work like magic. So this was the very first entry of an elephant across that. This picture was actually taken by AFP, this press people, AFP. Now, further north, as I've told you, we have been doing GPS tracking of elephants since 1998. What you're seeing on your screen, I've just labeled Mount Kenya and Lake Turkana just for perspective. So we are basically talking of the whole of the bigger part of northern Kenya. What you're seeing on your screen is 8 million GPS, hourly GPS fixes of about 230 elephants, tracked for various lengths of time. 1 year, some of them even up to 5 years. I just put it there on the mass, on the screen for you. Needless to say, you can't possibly make sense of that data. It is way too big. But that's part of what my job is at Save the Elephants. With all that mass of data, we are able to look at it further in terms of individual tracks. We are using a data-driven approach to avoid the issues we have seen in Savo that I have described in Savo. Using a data-driven approach, we are able to delineate further where are the core areas. What you see now on the map, I have simplified that mash of dots into hotspots. What you see at the center here, I think it's not working on the screen. At the center here is Samburu National Reserve, at the center of that mass, where where our study is based. Then all the way down here is Laikipia. So you can see elephants move even all the way down to south of Mount Kenya, and some all the way up to Marsabit. And I can tell you, despite all those tracks, we have the individual movements of elephants. We have elephants that actually do cross 2/3 of that landscape by themselves. Elephants moving right all the way from Laikipia down here, around Mount Kenya, all the way down to North Kitui. One elephant. And the elephant will take just a couple of days to do that. Looking at the data further, and as I said, using a data-driven approach, we calculate a metric code between this index. This is where we now start making sense of that mass of data. Which points are related to the next ones? Which points are within that 8 million data points? And out of that analysis, we come up with now the finer networks. You can now see on the screen here, we have finer networks. Basically, we are narrowing down to the corridors, using all that mass of tracking data. And having narrowed down to the corridors, I've just zoomed in now into a clear view of Buffalo Springs and Shaba National Reserve. Very clearly, you can see Asher's Post down there, just at the north of the river. The green line you're seeing here, from the down to up there, is actually the highway. I've just calibrated it in terms of the numbers of elephant crossings. That even if you don't have that capacity to do that complex statistical work I have done in the back there, you can still look at the highway in terms of how many times are elephants crossing here to come and determine where is the corridor. Because when you go on the ground, you don't see the elephants during the day. Most of them doing it at night, But we have to give information and tell them, where do you actually want to put either a corridor or a signpost? So I've just calibrated that road based on, symbolized that road based on the number of crossings. So the darker the patch, it signifies it's a corridor. The next thing that is happening in this landscape is the construction of the Lamu Port South Sudan transport corridor. It's passing right through this gap that I'm showing you between here, right here. That's another massive infrastructure. It comprises of a railway line, a pipeline, and a highway, all along the same route, like a 200-meter corridor. I'm a part of the team that is looking into the development plan for that one, and I've been able to share all this information. But besides that, if you can just zoom into here, what I've done, or what I do, is now trying to put beacons on the map. Where are these major corridors that we are seeing? These two lines are the ones that are just expanded here. But it is not my responsibility as a scientist to ensure it's gazetted per se. I can only put it on the map, but I don't own the land. The land belongs to the communities. It is up to the communities to decide whether they want to give that land for conservation or not. But at least from a science perspective, we keep assisting them and showing them where the corridors are. Not just them. We are working very closely with KENHA, Kenya National Highways Authority. This is an engineering design from the road construction companies. They are factoring in where do we actually need to put a crossing. They don't have to put very expensive culverts. That one that was done in Mount Kenya cost 20 million Kenya shillings. That's 12 years ago. but at least where elephants and other wildlife can cross through, if it's like across the river, can they put the bridge a little bit higher so that they can optimize? And where it's a quick corridor, consider a proper development. So we are hoping that when the upset comes, we are going to have less and less of what we have seen in Savo. Now let's get back into the deeper into the landscape. This picture, in a nutshell, explains the nature of the landscape in Samburu. Parts of Laikipia, further north in Samburu, going to Marsabit. Three things in this picture. The first thing you see is the hotel there. This is an area that is whose economy is based on tourism. That's a lodge. And the river is a Wasonyiro River. You see some 2 elephants in the middle ground there. You see a livestock herder here with lots of cows. And everyone is dependent on that particular river that you're seeing there. It's an area, it's a landscape that is dotted by occupied by pastoral communities. Wildlife and livestock living next to each other. And like Savo landscape, which hosts Kenya's largest elephant population at 12,000, this landscape, like Laikipia Samburu, is not a national park. 97% of the landscape, all the way from Laikipia to Marsabit, 97% of the landscape is not owned by the government. The only lands owned by the government are the few national parks, like the Laikipia National Park, which is very new, Samburu National Reserve, Buffalo Springs National Reserve. The rest of the land is actually owned by communities. Communities coexisting with wildlife. And this is the day-to-day picture that you see. However, all is not as good as you may think, because over time, water scarcity, settlements expansion, developments and habitat destruction is marking this landscape. The tragedy of commons. Those who are doing conservation biology will have heard this term. Those who have not heard the term, the tragedy of commons simply means the commons, actually, those who are lawyers, the commons is actually that public property. A public property is the one we are referring to as a common. The tragedy of commons is actually when people occupy a public resource or utilize a public resource without caring for the next person. The tragedy of commons is when you have your 100 camels, the neighbor also has 100 camels, you also think, the other person thinks, I also need 100 camels. But that land can only sustain maybe only 100. But everyone wants to have as much as they can. Due to that, what we call the tragedy of commons, everyone overutilizing the same resource, since it's a public resource, what you see is, the result is what you're seeing in this picture, land degradation. This picture is taken in Samburu. When land is that overgrazed, thousands of cattle, the moment it rains, the soil is already compacted more than below a 1 inch. What happens is that all the topsoil, sheet erosion, is carried away. Beyond that, it gets into gullies. Gullies that can even have caused elephant deaths. Elephants fall in these gullies, not just elephants. Even other animals, when they fall into such a gully, animals that will not be able to jump up, they die there. We are losing so much biodiversity, not just the animal side of it. I'm heading to the next one, the invasive species. But before we get there, at least there's some effort on the ground. But look at what's happening, or what they're doing. Attempts at doing gabions. That's all very good. But due to the massive amount of surface water running through the landscape, those gabions can't hold. But wait a minute, I think we may want to get the help of this gentleman. Unfortunately, he's no longer with us, our former President Moi and Kebake. Back those days in the 80s, this picture was very common in our primary school books, in our science books, on gabions building. Maybe we want to adopt this technology back. The president, the second president, Moi, and his vice president, Kebake, they are building gabions in the 1970s. I think we may need to borrow more of that technology than the latter one that you're using now. So what happens now on this landscape? Once you have a land that is bare, that is scorched by the sun to complete depletion, that the wind blows and all the soil is gone, over time, you lose the seed bank of most of the natural vegetation, the grasses, the herbs, the shrubs. However, as soon as it rains, there is another crop of species, of plants, other class of plants that are very successful, and most of them are not native there. The so-called invasive species. An invasive species is a species that is not native there. Either it has been brought from far, or it has naturalized itself. Why do we call them invasive? The characteristics of invasive species. These are species that have a very huge number of seeds per plant. They are like the weeds you see in the garden. They will outcompete the number of seeds comparing to the normal plants. They have a very fast germination rate. The moment it rains, in the next 4 days, most of these invasive species have already sprouted, where the native species are still waiting. Short maturity season, that the normal grasses, by the time they flower, they might be taking like 3-4 weeks. Invasive species, in 3 weeks, they have already dropped their seeds. They outcompete the native plants. Some of them will be climbers. Once they get into a patch, they spread very fast, and they smooth out the other vegetation that we usually rely on. Most are unpalatable to wildlife and livestock. They are not the kind of plants that you expect that every other animal will be eating. So the landscape is green, yes, but the animals cannot eat it. Some are very poisonous. Just an example, Opuntia. Opuntia is becoming one of the menace in the north. Opuntia is the cactus. The fruits are edible, actually. And this is part of the reason why it's even harder to control it. The fruits are edible to elephants. Elephants will come and feed on them. They go defecate elsewhere. The other thing that is causing the spread is people doing the opposite of what they're supposed to be doing. They'll cut it up, slash it up into pieces, and lodge it somewhere. This plant, the moment you cut it, you slice it, each slice you cut, even if it's 3 inches, has a potential of regenerating into another whole plant. So when you cut these ones and you put in the laggers, those are erosion gullies, the laggers. When you put them there, you think you're heaping up and controlling the erosion. The moment the next runoff comes, they germinate or they are either distributed further down. It's one of the hardest plants to control in the landscape. And as you can see here, this is a photo taken during the dry season. You see a plant that is even flowering here. The Decryptera, those who are good in botany, the Decryptera species here. This plant is flowering when the other grass is already smoothed. You can't see another green thing, but the plant is already flowering. This is the characteristic of invasive species. They will succeed where no other plant is succeeding. Mathenge, Prosopis gyrifloris. This is Mathenge, picture of Mathenge. This is a photo taken by Kabi. It's taken somewhere at a valley, like the river I've just shown you, Ewaso River. Now you can picture those trees in the background, and this is a lagger that should actually be having grass for maybe wildlife and other animals to eat. But this is Mathenge, Prosopis gyriflora. This plant was introduced in the country in the 1980s to combat desertification in northern Kenya. When it was brought up, it was very successful. It smoothed out all vegetation in the northern Kenya. Soon it was taken to Baringo. Baringo now is a menace. This plant, the thorns, when they prick you, you get a very bad wood. The pods are edible to the goats. But what's happening in the sides of Baringo, when the goats eat the pods, they lose the teeth. Why? It's not the poison. The pods have a lot of sugar, but the goats don't go to the dentist. So over time, the teeth are worn out. I've just told you about the poisonous one. This one is a Parthenium, right here. On purpose, I clipped this one from a Kabi website. Parthenium is a very poisonous weed to wildlife. But you can see here on this particular picture, it's a plant that is choking most of our national reserves, including Nairobi National Park here. And as you can see here, look at the magnitude of the flowers, the white you are seeing on the top. As many flowers as you can imagine. Look below it, you can see beneath it some grass that is trying to sprout up, but it's going to be smoothed out. Look at how vibrant this plant is compared to the grasses that the wildlife should be feeding on. On the right-hand side, that's the Opuntia again, the cactus. Look at how green it is. So from space, you look at it and you see a very good normalized vegetation difference index. NDVI, those who are good, who are in natural resources will know that one. NDVI, you are looking at the greenness index of a landscape. From sky, it's deceptive. The land is very green, but green with what? The stuff that no wildlife will be enjoying. The same picture. You see the gullies here, like on this top, this right here. You see the gullies here. This invasive plant occupies the bottom of the valley and spreads as far as it can. This is one of the issues we have in the north. We are losing the plant biodiversity. The moment you have all these plants growing, whatever you had, only a few grass species will be there. We are now discussing how to regenerate these landscapes. And the discussion is, what grass species do we take there? We actually are thinking, do we actually have to get seed bank from elsewhere to go and kind of replant, to restore the rangelands? because they have been smoothed out by the invasive species. So losing our native plant species is a threat to the existence on all other forms. This is a landscape that pastoralists depend on. You have seen the droughts that have come, and they have been saying we don't have food. Why? There's no grass. It rains, the invasive species come up, very little patches that in an acre, you realize that maybe only 10 or 15% of that pasture in 1 acre is palatable. The rest is just useless to livestock. We have heard of the lakes rising. Lake Nakuru National Park has been marooned, rising water levels. In other lakes, the water levels are going down. All this can be attributed to climate change, in as much as we don't even know the exact cause. In Lake Nakuru National Park, it's known for flamingos. The water is rising, but why are we losing biodiversity, yet there is water? Everything in nature has to have a trophic balance. Lake Nakuru National Park, the flamingos there feed on an algae called Spirulina platensis. It depends on a particular pH to grow or to thrive. Once the water comes up and is diluted, there's nothing for the flamingos to eat, and that's where we are losing the flamingos. The opposite, and this one you can check even on YouTube, we are already lamenting the Kenya grey-crowned crane bird. And these are just examples. It depends on the water. A lake called Olbolsat, somewhere on the other side of Abadeas, on your way to Nyahururu, has been a very good home, but it's now drying. Now this is the opposite effect. This bird thrives on water. Now the lake is dry, and we are lamenting. There's even a whole documentary, a 10-minute documentary on on YouTube from Citizen TV. Effects of agrochemicals on biodiversity. The farming systems that we had back then, comparing to what we have today, land has been subdivided. That land that I used to see my grandfather and I, when we were looking at our cows, all the manner of flowers coming up, it's no longer there. It has been subdivided. My grandfather had 6 sons. The land was 7 acres then. Now each of them has an acre, which means that it has now been reduced into smaller species, such that the productivity, for you to boost the productivity, you have to add lots of fertilizers. Intensive agriculture. We are moving to an intensive agriculture because of land parcels getting smaller in the so-called prime areas. When we have lots of agrochemicals on the plants, they end up actually infiltrating into the water systems. And we are losing a lot of biodiversity, especially the birds. Poisoning. This one may actually even be attributed to even pastoral communities, like in the Mara there. We are losing at an alarming rate the numbers of vultures, that's the birds of prey, within the landscapes. When a pastoralist gets the cow has been eaten by a lion, they'll poison that cow. That cow attracts vultures in hundreds, and you can find 100 vultures dead in just one incident. We are losing our biodiversity at an alarming rate, and it's linked to the misuse of agrochemicals, both by the pastoral communities and the farming communities. The single most important risk in our biodiversity that no one is possibly taking, or very few people are recognizing, and this is the immediate danger we have. Forget about the invasive species. This is the biggest danger we have, dwindling numbers of pollinators. We are losing as many pollinators as you can imagine. All those chemicals, the farmers are using chemicals. The numbers of bees. We are an agricultural community. We are dependent on pollination. What does it mean when we lose the bees, the butterflies, and all those pollinators? Very simple. No food in the market. Part of the reason why we have a decline in agricultural production today is because there's not enough pollinators. Mark you, even today, the avocado farming is picking up. And people don't even understand the nature of pollination. They'll have a whole orchard. No one can even think of putting a beehive there. Yet they expect some pollination to happen. As if that's not enough, they'll come and spray as many chemicals as they can on that orchard. And they are just oblivious of the fact that they actually need pollinators. We are losing our pollinator biodiversity at an alarming rate, and it's affecting our agricultural production. Part of the reason we have less food from the same piece of land that you had some time back is because there was no pollination. We need natural areas within agricultural landscapes and less use of agrochemicals. At a personal level, there's something you can do, but at a personal level, the very basic thing is, can you at least encourage a patch of flowers in your neighborhood to host the pollinators here? I just took this one from a post from a friend on LinkedIn. You see at the top there is a homestead that looks very unkept. I am using the word unkept on purpose. It looks very unkept. But there are lots of flowers there. Look at the insects associated with it. Go to the next level. The person decides, oh, I need to have my path modified. They go ahead and remove, realign the flowers. They think it's a beautiful thing. Look at the equivalent number of species, of insects. And at the bottom, someone thinks, oh, I just want a very clean lawn, like a golf patch. Fine, he has the right to do that, but that's the result. We are losing our biodiversity at an alarming rate, even when we have something to do. That is at a personal level. At a community level, what do? You have to engage. We have to engage the other community members to make decisions on the utilization of the resources. This one such meeting, that's a Save the Elephants camp back there. This one meeting with the locals in Samburu, discussing that, yes, we have seen this is a corridor. We show them the maps. This was actually a meeting to show them the maps. You saw the corridors that I have digitized. We took to the ground, I told them, this is where elephants move through. And they know historically. So we are just basically confirming to them what they already know. But it's up to you to decide whether you want to give this land as a corridor or not. At a national level, at a government level, integrated spatial plans. I've been involved in a number of spatial plan developments for Laikipia County, Isiro County, Samburu County. The latest one I was involved in is the Laikipia Spatial Plan. That's why I actually put it there on purpose. But I've been involved in a few other initiatives, even the production of the National Wildlife Corridor Report. But when you talk of integrating, who are we integrating? I was telling Sharon, this particular slide, I need a whole 1 to 2 hours to talk about it. When you talk of integrated spatial plans, this is where now the rubber meets the road. Because the moment you talk of conservation, and you go on the ground and you start doing this or that, the neighbors will tell you, hey, stop it. This is my land. Your wildlife is going to do this or that. Even if you agree at that level, another person comes and tells you, hey, this one is already where live. You can't build here. We need to bring all these professionals together. Physical planners and civil engineers. Civil engineers don't have any idea or have very little idea on what biodiversity is like on the landscape. They need to be informed. When they are designing that culvert, we are telling them, just on purpose, we know very well that water can pass through a 1 meter corridor, or a culvert. But if it's possible, can you design a big bridge? Because that bridge is going to serve as connectivity route even for other forms of biodiversity, for other wildlife. GIS and remote sensing experts. I'm going to mention this one in a while. But conservation biology as well. We need to be there on the ground to give them the information. These county spatial plans, the good thing with them is that they are bringing biologists there, they are bringing the landowners there, the communities there. That's what you call an integrated approach. We need legal practitioners to gazette that corridor. You can't do it without the help of lawyers. It is a process that has to go either through the county government, even in public land, even the parliament. We need legal experts. You have to engage the farmers and the pastoralists. They are the stakeholders. You can't just be planning from Nairobi and you're ignoring the people on the ground there. Activists likewise. At times as scientists, we do our best, but the government doesn't hear. Activists have a role. Shout out. Media and comms team, everyone has a role. Just as I finish, one of the technical aspects, I can't present everything in that slide, even in the 10 minutes if I wanted to go in detail. But at least I thought I should let you know, now that you are in the Department of Natural Resources, one of the skills that we actually need there is you can leverage on the geographical information systems. Today when you graduate and you go to any office there, you are going to be asked, okay, you have your degree in natural resources. We need people who can do this or that. What can you do technically? Besides your degree, what can you do? One of the most handy tools is being able to work with GIS. Being able to consolidate data, it is the sense of where. You can map, you can show where it is. That's part of the work we do on the ground. You can graduate and come with your degree. You are very good in biology. And this is actually what happened when I finished my first degree. When I finished my first degree in Chiromo, I did botany and zoology in Chiromo. I went on my first job. As a research assistant, I was supposed to record the waypoints of hartebeests where I was seeing them. But I did not know anything about it. I had to go to a colleague and ask him, can you show me how to put some GPS points? He gave me a GPS on the day one. And he told me, so when I went to the field, I didn't even know how to save a waypoint on the GPS itself. I went with a note paper. And I came back in the evening very happy with my GPS points. Then he said, oh, sorry, I didn't show you how to save them. But now, no worries. We can put them in the computer. We put them in the computer, in an Excel spreadsheet, then we plot on the map, and I was like, wow, I have done it. The following day, I went and now knew how to map it. Within a few months, I had mapped the locations of the animal I was studying, and I appreciated the power of GIS as a tool in conservation biology. I took up courses online from ESRI, Environmental Systems Research Institute, and then in a few months, I passed all of them, all the online modules. They invited me over to the US for further training on the same. As one of the tools that you need, please, if you can consider learning GIS, you would be very handy out here. Almost everything we are doing in conservation is pegged on around GIS. You have to map it. It is the science of where. Everything that has a location can be mapped, and that's what we are fighting. And it's not just useful in conservation. It's used in every other industry. Aviation industry, in the banking industry, especially out in the developed countries. We are able to monitor from space changes in the physical environment using remote sensing, another related aspect of the GIS. These are the technical skills that you need even as you are graduating. That yes, you come to my office for an interview, but I'll be looking at it. What can I ask him to do? Can I ask him to map for me where pollution is happening? Can I ask him to go to the field and bring me information on this or that? You can use the expertise to predict future changes and some mitigation measures. Joint land use development and conservation planning. When you say joint, it means all the stakeholders, even if they are not in conservation. Everyone has a stake in this. And the last one, own up to the responsibility of your immediate environment. You don't need to have a degree in biology to do this. Thank you. That's it from me. I'm happy to take some questions. Or comments. Yeah. The online audience, can you please unmute yourself? And feel free to raise up your hand.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Yes, thank you for the nice presentation and very informative. My name is Lucy, student at Agabu. Just want to ask about this Prosopis gilliflora being an invasive species. Does this species have like any other, are they like two species, but there is one that is not invasive? Because I've seen a certain, where I am, there is this gilliflora, but I haven't seen it maybe growing or being that rampant, and yet it has been there for so many years. So I thought like maybe this one, if it can be used maybe like to those areas that are decertified, maybe for desertification, like in Bogoria, it can be useful other than the other species that is so much invasive. Thank you.
Thank you. She's asking that she has seen patch or a part of prosopis that is not expanding. And she's wondering whether it is less invasive. And if it can be used as an alternative in combating desertification. I'll be very candid on this one. All the species of prosopis are quite invasive. All it takes is the dispersal. Most likely the species, the patch that you're seeing there, hasn't encountered the dispersal mechanisms. But the moment it gets a dispersal avenue, it's going to spread very fast. We don't know a single one that is not really menace wherever it grows. I would be interested to actually get to know more of where is this patch that is localized. Everywhere you get a small patch, 5 years later you go there, it's like more than an acre. Thank you, then that's a very good observation. I think I now understand exactly where you are. Part of the dispersal of prosopis is through water. When the pods fall down and they are spread out by maybe surface runoff, that may be part of the limitation where it's not spreading. There's not enough maybe runoff water around where you are. If you go to places like Baringo or parts of Samburu, it spreads actually along the river valleys. Once the pods fall down, at the next rainy season, the pods are spread along the river valley.
Thank you. I now have the great answer to be telling those who asked.
You're welcome. I'm looking through the chats. Yes, please.
My name is Martin.
Yes.
I'm just concerned about this, the Indian crow, this bird is quickly colonizing the entire area coming from the coast.
Yes.
I don't know what can be done about it.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate it. He is asking about the Indian crow. The Indian crow arrived in the Kenyan coast many years back, but it has actually become a menace. I would be very candid and say I would refer this question to ornithologists. They may be best placed to advise on the best way to control it. I'm afraid I don't have a candid answer to say this is what we can do. I would refer that one to ornithologists. Because in nature, once you use a control mechanism, you have to consider all the other interacting factors. It's a trophic chain. I'm scrolling through. Can you also help me read out the questions, Sharon? Okay.
A question?
Yes.
Okay, my name is Vincent Kipaze. My name is a student at Kenyatta University.
Yep.
My question is based on the corridors, agriculture, and the fences you've just mentioned. With the corridors, what are some of the measures which have been put in place to preserve these corridors? And how effective have they been? Based, as we know that with the continuous urbanization and the agricultural extension in our country, what is the future of our corridors at the moment? And how can we integrate the development and the conservation in our plans? Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Vincent. Vincent is asking, what has been the success in securing corridors and how can we integrate with the development? The best success we have of corridors, or the brightest future we have, is in the north, because at the very least we have information. Save the Elephants is working alongside WISE Foundation. WISE is WISS, WISE Foundation, to secure corridors in the north. Like I showed in the presentation, we have met the stakeholders on the ground, the pastoralists. We have identified with them where the corridors should be, and they have even offered to give up some of the land. Likewise, the Kenya National Highways Authority, they are using the information we have to devise, to actually design roads with underpasses or overpasses for wildlife. So we have a very good success story in coming up in the north. However, I have to admit, in the south of the country, it's not been as rosy.
There's a question about EIA from Tibet. What is the role of EIA /A in regards to conservation if the project can be done without considering the animal's natural ecosystem change, without engineering suggestions like elephants' cross points?
Sorry, I hope I got you right. Your question is, what is the role of EIA?
Yes, in elephant corridors and also changing of the ecosystem.
Thank you very much. Actually, EIA is pivotal. In all these planning initiatives that we work on, we have EIA officers. And before you even do any highway construction, sorry, I'm reading the question again because I've seen it written. What is the role of EIA in regards to conservation if project can be done without considering the animal's natural ecosystem change, without engineering suggestions like elephant crossing points? I think I now get you better. And I feel the way you have put it, you are as frustrated as many other Kenyans, including myself. We have ignored EIA, but to be very candid, EIA should be central and pivotal in any development plan. Whether it's a highway under construction, whether it's designing a protected area, EIA is pivotal. In these development meetings that we usually have, like the Samburu Isiro Conservation Area Management Plan, like Kipe County Spatial Plan, we are very cognizant of the importance of EIA.
My name is Seda from Multimedia. Mine is just a simple question on the challenge of habitat fragmentation, whereby some parts of the habitat are destroyed by natural disasters and human activity. For example, in that image that showed an elephant crossing, and some elephants were shown dead beside the road. So what are some of the things that can be done to mitigate that challenge of destruction of wildlife?
Thank you. He's asking, what are the mitigations that can be done on, once he mentioned habitat fragmentation, and then he also combined linear infrastructure. I want to actually put the two together. You combined habitat fragmentation in Mara and the linear infrastructure. I want to start with the fragmentation. This is what actually we need to adhere to. The government has made it compulsory for every county government to make a county spatial development plan before they can access the national kitty. What needs to be done is that the county needs to recognize the land uses that are compatible with every part of that county. For example, in the Mara, if they recognize that it's a wildlife area, they should only endorse land use practices that do not interfere with wildlife crossing. For example, they could say this area is zoned. Even if you own it, you cannot do agriculture or you cannot do the fencing. Compatible land use systems near protected areas. Number two, on the linear infrastructure. What needs to be done is tell you, we don't have reduction in rainfall patterns. We don't have a reduction in the rainfall. What is happening is the pattern. It is coming within a very short time, the same volume. This is a matter that is more to do with climate change. You will realize that some places, if the annual rainfall recorded is 1,000 millimeters per year, it is coming the same 1,000 millimeters per year, but within a span of 1 week, and then it goes. It just causes destruction and flash floods. I wish I could have a better answer as to why the government is not doing this one. But at the very least, I can say there is something I'm seeing in the plans in terms of water conservation nowadays. And I hope you're not going to sink a borehole in every other place. In terms of wildlife dying, it's very true. We have lost a huge number of wildlife species, or wildlife numbers, due to the droughts. One of the things we have to be very careful. It doesn't mean that sinking a borehole in each and every corner of a national park will save the situation. It might be the opposite. We need a very well-informed strategy, informed by the biologists, where to put the water points, so that you don't aggregate the animals at all at one point, and then you lead to more degradation. I wish I could give you more concise answers, but I'm not in the government to answer more confidently than that.
Thank you.
Now we can have the physical audience. Our request is when we have two sources of sound, the camera splits. So please, we have to make sure that it's coming from one area. So, Dr. Your answer? Yes. Come and pick.
Okay, I have a question. I actually have two questions. The first question is, we find that biodiversity loss, almost 85% of it is structured on the aspect of human development, agricultural development, and ways towards creation of the food system, the food chain. Is there, like, towards development, roads, all these systems, is there a better way in which we can help go against this biodiversity loss without changing because development is actually good and we all agree to that. So is there, or we just stop the development and move towards ensuring that there's no biodiversity loss? The second question is this. I was reading an article yesterday, and it was a criticism towards this climate change pact and biodiversity thing. So the criticism was that nature has its own course of restructuring itself, in the sense that if you read towards history, you'll have seen things like, depending on your history of definition of how the world came to be, we may have things like the Ice Age. We may have things like the Noah's flood, those who are Christian, and so the thing is, since nature has its own way of structuring itself, this means that it ends its own biodiversity and restructures itself towards increasing the same biodiversity. The person was stating that human beings in this hedonistic and capitalistic world have come about with programs and ways, ideological formats of trying to pull masses together and gain money through it, through programs and through, I may say, companies, organization, and so that they can harness money towards it. And the thing was, we bring about an ideological format that yes, there's biodiversity loss, of which it's true, but then it's more caused by nature than, let me say, the human activities. And we push the ideology towards the people so that we can get the masses and the money, because we are in a capitalistic world. So my question is, what's your point of view on that? Because it seems to be a good idea too. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. He has two questions. The first question, he observes that 85% of biodiversity loss is human-related. Is there a better way of mitigating it? I would imagine the best way to mitigate is better planning. planning with the interest of nature at heart as well, and balancing the needs for humans and wildlife. Question number 2 is quite interesting. It's quite philosophical. Nature has its own way of restructuring. And he poses a question, why can't we let nature take its course if I got him well? I would say, philosophically, I can't agree more with him. I agree. Nature has its own way of balancing itself. However, this can only happen if all the animals in that natural landscape act without greed. But there's one animal that is very greedy. That animal is man. And because of that, we cannot just let man continue doing what he is doing and we believe that nature is going to balance itself. We have to tell man at some point, hey, please pause. Thank you very much. The person is asking about LAPSET and the mitigation measures. And I can say confidently, I have been part of the team that has been evaluating the impacts of LAPSET on biodiversity. If implemented the way it has been discussed and agreed on by the stakeholders, it is going to be one of the successful projects. We have identified the biodiversity hotspots. We have identified where the corridors should be, and all of it is now in the open knowledge of whoever is going to come for that development. So that's part of the area that we are looking forward to a very successful infrastructure development. Thank you very much. He's asking, what is Save the Elephants doing in Laikipia to address human-wildlife conflict? I would say Save the Elephants, most of the human-elephant conflict work is in Savo. In Laikipia, we have our collaborators on the ground, Space for Giants. Space for Giants are on the ground. We collaborate on many avenues, and they are doing the monitoring of even the effectiveness of the fence. Conflict, we don't have a project in Laikipia. The main project we have is in Savo, but we are looking forward to looking into the conflict issues further north. So in Laikipia, Space for Giants would be best place to respond. They are our collaborators in the field, and if he's from the area, I'm sure he knows Space for Giants.
My name is Rolex from Multimedia University. I have a question. My question is, from the topic of today, we have seen the disadvantages of biodiversity. Do we have advantage? And if we have advantage, we as human beings, which side should we stand on? Either on advantage side or disadvantage side? Thank you.
Would you kindly rephrase the question again? I don't think I got it well.
My question is, on the topic of today, of biodiversity, we have looked at the disadvantages of it. Do we have the advantage part of it? And if we have the advantage part, we as human beings, where should we stand? Either should we stand on the advantage part or disadvantage part?
Thank you. I think probably we want to clarify. We have looked at the impacts of biodiversity loss. He is asking, what are the disadvantages of biodiversity? I think if I didn't get the question very well, but if I can attempt to maybe rephrase it, maybe you're asking, is there any positive side beyond the losses? I could say there are some areas that we have done better than others, but per se, the question of the disadvantages of biodiversity, it's not quite clear. Maybe someone else can help me rephrase the question, if I didn't get it correctly. Okay.
Okay. During the talk on the elephants, I only heard maybe you talked about the elephants from Laikipia region to Tsavo, mostly the place where they are playing. So I was asking about the cave elephants. How do you go about the cave elephants? Let's say the cave elephants from Mount Elgon. How are they being able to be cared for?
Thank you. He is asking, I mentioned Tsavo and Laikipia elephants, and he is asking about Mount Elgon. He's quite observant that we have various elephant populations. I, on purpose, just chose to talk about the key populations, Tsavo and Samburu. And however, you realize that the threats to the elephants are varied from one place to another one. The elephants in Mount Elgon are not as threatened by these issues of development like the elephants in Tsavo or in Samburu, for example. I would say we have a fairly small number of elephants there, and it's doing well. I know it's part of what we call the monitoring of illegal killing of elephants, MIC sites. So we do actually monitor on the ground, but relatively speaking, they are less threatened comparing to the elephants in the front lines, Samburu and Laikipia. You are very observant, we have a population there.
What is the impact of the current banditry experience in the north in regard to human-wildlife conflict? The banditry.
Thank you very much, Vincent. And by asking that question, you're actually opening a can of worms. There is what we call the monitoring of illegal killing of elephants program, which monitors the deaths of elephants, and I have ran the initiative for the last 20 years. With relation to the banditry, the last 5 years, we have observed something that is very unusual. Bandits killing elephants not for ivory, just for the sake of it. And we have actually got to even describe it as aggression rather than conflict. It is more of aggression than conflict. Conflict is when the elephant comes to where humans are and there is that competition. Now this is the case of humans just going to where the elephants are, shooting them from there, encountering them. Another complicating factor is the drought. The bandits that you so-called bandits, they are some of the cattle owners, just that they are grazing with guns on them. They go to a water point, they fight livestock, and they fight wildlife, and they shoot just recklessly like that. So Vincent, you're quite observant. There is a relationship between the conflict and banditry, but we are not able to even draw the line and say, this level or this magnitude of loss is due to conflict and this one is due to banditry. It's a security question.
Thank you. There's another one from Zach Muteti from Karatina University. And he asks, elephants dispersing prosopis from unprotected to the protected part of Tsavo West. Dr. Ihwagi, what do you suppose as an ideal intervention to remedy?
Thanks a lot, Zach. And it's quite a good observation. Elephants dispersing prosopis from community areas to into the park. It's not a very easy question to categorically say, because if I was to say categorically, I would say keep elephants away. But we want to maintain that continuous range. Unless we were to fence it, we can't possibly do anything. We just have to say, okay, what can we do in the park? Can we possibly have a way of removing the prosopis when it's still young? It is a mechanical method that can be done, but not when it's too vast. A mechanical removal has been applied in Nairobi National Park. We have had teams of youths going to Nairobi National Park actually led by Suso, this is an organization called Startup Shoutout, to go and actually uproot Parthenium from Nairobi National Park. On a small scale, even in Savo, it is possible to uproot the prosopis. But in terms of the movement, it is not a very easy control. It's not easy to control. Thanks a lot, Zach.
Yeah, there are many questions. The next is from Alex Ndungu, and he's asking regarding large-scale fish farming, cage culture, what are some of the impacts likely to arise to the native species, considering high level of eutrophication and possible introduction of invasive species?
Thanks a lot. I appreciate the question, and it's on the impact of aquatic life. I would be very honest, it's not an area that I have enough expertise on to comment on that. My expertise is on the rangelands.
Thank you. The next one is also water-related from Lucy Tisa. Why hasn't it been easy to restore Lake Olbolosat, yet it lies within the Aberdare and Mount Kenya water catchments? Lake Olbolosat.
Thanks. I know the lake very well. I know the place, and I can't give a firm answer, but from my own observation, the forests around Aberdare along the place, I know that spot. Driving from Marine, going towards Chamata, much of whatever used to be a forest is now gone. There's no forest. I would imagine that naturally, that's part of the reason why we have a very low recharge of that lake.
Okay, the next question. These are all the environmental students. I mentioned many of them are online. The next question is coming from Evelyn. Are you in any way involved in curbing poaching and the illegal ivory trade?
Thanks a lot. And actually, I am at the center of exactly what you have asked. She's asking, am I in any way involved in curbing of poaching and trafficking? That's actually my main job. In the year 2002, the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species met, and all countries agreed to have some monitoring of illegal killing of elephants sites, 57 sites. In 2002, I set up to implement Laikipia Samburu Mike site, monitoring the illegal killing of elephants, and by 2009, we are the best site in the world. I am running the best Mike site in the world in collaboration with the Wildlife Research and Training Institute and Kenya Wildlife Service. And most of my research work is centered on elephant movement behavior in relation to risk, and the risk is poaching. So yes, I'm at the center of everything to do with poaching and monitoring in the continent.
Thank you so much. She says, wow, thank you. And then final question from Jessica Olenyo, who is at Hell's Gate, Naivasha, one of our students. Sometimes back last year, elephants were observed in Hell's Gate National Park. Could there be an elephant corridor within Naivasha?
Thanks a lot. She's asking, sometimes last year some elephants were observed in Naivasha. Could there be a corridor? Yes, indeed I was informed of that. I got the news that there were 2 elephants. But when we assessed, there's a very low probability of a major corridor. Those were possibly just stray elephants. When we look at the elephant range, Hell's Gate has not been part of the core elephant range. Those were possibly stray elephants. But yes, I know them. I remember that incident.
Maybe I can, there's a question here from Nelson. Yes.
Thank you. My question is to do with, you mentioned the county special development plan that's now, so now would you say now developments such as like lab sets or any major road developments, are they now required? Is it now a law that has them, that now requires them to take in your input to now know the corridors and make sure they plan around that? And my second question is to do with the Laikipia Samburu. How land, if you showed us some examples of like the invasive species there, so the process of the restoration, how so far from what you've seen, how that process is ongoing. You mentioned you're looking that the team's looking for certain grasses to bring there. So I just wanted to know what's the progress on that. And then to do with the GIS, with tracking the elephants, say from a population, is it now now attaching the trackers, do you use a representative sample now to just know this is how this certain population moves, and these are the corridors they use? Thank you.
Thank you. He has 3 questions. Question number 1: Is it now a legal requirement for county governments to make spatial plan and for projects like CLAPSET to go through EIA? The first question: yes, it is now a legal requirement. Every county must have a county spatial plan before money is released from the treasury. The question number 2: it has always been like that. Legally, the projects are supposed to go through EIA. As part of EIA, they are supposed to consolidate as much information as they can, and that's why, by default, they have to come for the information we have and other researchers have on the ground. The question of range restoration, that's a very good question. Yes, there has been some good efforts spearheaded by the Northern Rangelands Trust. The Northern Rangelands Trust is an aggregation of community conservancies in the north, and also by the University of Nairobi, Kabete campus, there is the Department of Range Management. I know there's someone called Dr. Stephen Mureithi who is spearheading that one. If you can check on what, it's called LAMAT, Department of LAMAT. They are the ones spearheading rangeland restoration in the north. The third question, GPS tracking. How do we select the candidates? A very good question. From a biological point of view, it makes sense to ask that question. We just can't go and put collars on elephants without at least some information. What we do, if we say we want to have some new collars in an area we have not been to, we'll send a team to go there like a week. They are going to observe, and based on the interactions between the elephants, they will establish whether this is one family or not. If it's one family, they identify the most suitable one for tracking. And we don't go for the youngest ones. If you go for the young ones, the collar is going to, they are going to outgrow the collar, and over time, it's going to possibly be tight on the necks. So for natural reasons, you have to go for the one that is mature. Then the other question comes from, what scientific questions do we want to answer? If you want to answer a question on the ranging behavior, you are better placed looking at females. Because females, the matriarchs, they are the group leaders. Elephants are led by a matriarch. The oldest elephant, the grandmother, she is the one who leads the family. But there are times you just want to have specific questions on charismatic bulls, where they are going. So you have to use a biological criteria to decide who to collar. So you don't just collar any elephant. Again, if there are 2 or 3 herds and you see they are working together, there is no point of collaring the 2 or 3 herds together, because you're most likely getting a replica data set. That's why on the ground we have a field team that does what you call the long-term monitoring. It is very expensive putting one single collar. You want to have the best output from that collar. Thanks a lot. She is asking about elephants in Sheba Hills. Yeah, we know there's a small population of elephants in Sheba Hills, and but we are not currently doing any monitoring there. We don't have any active GPS tracking there. Our tracking projects are Savo, Mara, Laikipia, Samburu, Takwel, Narok, and Kidepo in Uganda.
Okay. I don't know if there's another question. There's one there.
First and foremost, let me appreciate for the work you have done in the few minutes ago. So my question is, actually we have seen the Kenya Railways Authority has tried so much in building the culverts and underways for the elephants to pass. So my question is, when we are talking about the ecosystem, we must include human beings in the same thing because they are living beings. So, if there are no any kitty from the national treasury that has been stipulated to curb the people or human settlements which have been found settling in the corridors unknowingly. Another question is, as you have seen, there are many plants which have come and they have dispersed everywhere, and they are. Okay. So, the next question is about the plants which have been dispersed everywhere, which are unfavorable to the underground, that is grass. So, as scientists, if there are no any other biological control of introducing another plant that will grow in favor of grass, but at the same time will be against or unfavorable to the plants which are against the grass.
Thank you. He has two questions. The first question is there not a kitty to address the settlements along the infrastructural developments? I would say, for one, it's even illegal for those settlements. Why the settlements happened is because there was a caveat in the legal ownership of that section. When SGL was constructed, there is a highway there, there's a national park here. Who is responsible for that land in between there? It is not KWS, it is not expressly the highway, it is not expressly the railway line. That's why it took some time and some good deliberations and high level of intervention to get the people to move out. When we talk of a kitty, it would be counterproductive for a government to have a kitty to remove people who have settled somewhere illegally. The second question is on the invasive species, biological control. Efforts at biological control have been in place for various invasive species. We have efforts to eradicate opuntia using a bug, but they are very slow. The rate at which it's spreading is faster than the rate at which the bug can consume. It has been tried even in Lake Victoria with the water hyacinth. In terms of a grass that can displace, that can grow better, already if you bring a grass from elsewhere, a species from elsewhere that can do better than this one, by nature, it's already an invasive species. The intention is to biologically conserve the native species without having to introduce another species that is going to smoother it out. I have a question from Anne Wamboing. Does your organization offer internship opportunities? The answer is a yes. Yes, we do. We have our research center in Samburu. At any one time, we have 2 or 3 interns, or 4, and we try to pair them, 2 local, 2 international, at any one time. And once in a while, when we have an opportunity in Nairobi, within the GIS unit, we can have an intern. So yes. And this one triggers me to say something else, let alone as we finish, the research fund. How heavy is an elephant collar? And how long does it last before its shelf life comes to an end? A very interesting technical question. We have been developing collar technology as the pioneers Save the Elephants since 1998. The earlier collars were much heavier, even up to 8 kgs. Today we can have collars that are much lighter, 5, 6 kgs. And when you hear of 6 kgs, remember an elephant is 4 tons. The ratio of a 6 kg to 4 tons is more or less like you wearing your watch. So the weight is not really a concern. And how long does it last? Some collars from some manufacturers will last longer than the others. It's a question of which manufacturer you went to. It's like cars. It's like asking a car, how long does a car last? Some will be stronger than the others, but on average, we have a lifespan of about 2 to 3 years. Although exceptionally, we have some collars that have gone even more than that. Once in a while, you may be in bad luck, a collar fails in 6 months. But we have improved the technology so far that we can have collars that can reliably be counted on for the next 3-4 years. Now, in relation to the first question, should I mention about the research fund at this point? She asked a very good question. Do you have internship opportunities? Yes. Besides that one, we have research fund. we have a scholarship fund. We have 2 or 3 scholarships, 100% paid, currently within the public universities. And indeed, the 2 persons who asked the questions here, David Kipkazi and Zachary, I just didn't want to say, but they are beneficiaries. They are part of the beneficiaries. They are doing their masters in Karatina under funding from Save the Elephants. So we have a fund that we can fund either the full scholarship or part of your research work. For the full scholarships, we are targeting public universities because the fee note is lesser. And for you, if you are interested and you have a project that is involves elephant work, it could be anything to do with conflict or the biology of it, you send us a proposal, we may consider.
Okay, it's another question. You've talked about research, and this is one of the things that universities may do. Is there any other thing that university can do, let me say, towards biodiversity loss, apart from just, let me say, research, which is actually a good thing? Is there any other thing that university students, we have clubs, we have a School of Sciences that are here, yes, as an audience, and we've been to other places to be audiences. So is there any other way whereby the university can be integrated, either through policy making or in terms of diversity loss, biodiversity loss?
Thank you. He has asked a very good question. Is there any other way the university can be involved in apart from research? I'll tell you yes. In 1997, we had the last El Nino rains, 1997, 1998. Our parks were overrun by invasive species. Specifically, the case of Lake Nakuru National Park. University of Nairobi teamed up with Kenya Wildlife Service to go and do an assessment, biodiversity assessment, of the extent of the invasive species there. And it was a paid contract. And for once, that was my very first ever paid thing, because I was a student in Form 4, in 4th year, sorry, and I was very good in botany. They took me along to go and actually help in plant identification. So yes, you can team up, the university can team up with the corporates, Kenya Wildlife Service, the Wildlife Research and Training Institute, and implement some projects jointly.
Just leave the computer there. Just leave the computer there. Thank you so much, Doc. Actually, I found myself in the office calling Doc. I was referring to her, and is the one who said yes. So thank you so much, Doc. Wewe ni daktari, sio wa wanyama, but umetutibu. Si tumetibiwa? Comrades power. Comrades wisdom. Comrades. If you see a young man listening and being careful about elephants, you know the debate is about to get hot. Sindio? So I want to listen to one of the comrades. All the way, hold on, all the way from Burundi. We want to get an experience from one of the environment students about what and then we'll do a vote of thanks. And then you know what comrades are supposed to do? Yes. So let's welcome Kaitina, who is a 3rd year student now, I think so. 4th, 2nd. Oh, I'm promoting her. So what have you learned, and what will you want to share with the rest?
Yeah. Oh, okay. So hi everyone. So today, this afternoon, I learned a lot about the biodiversity, and as coming from a country whose 90% of economy is depending on agriculture, I believe that biodiversity has to be kept, because the more you keep it, the more productive the country will become. We don't have a lot of activities. It's a very small country, and it's landlocked. Like, we don't have aquatic products and stuff like that to depend on, but we depend on agriculture, 90%. So if we don't keep that biodiversity, I believe that the plants will be affected, and it is happening now in my country, and I've learned that there are different methods to focus on the biodiversity hotspot so that it becomes more productive for the nation. And as an environmental student, I thank Mr. Idwai, yes, for coming to talk to us and increasing our knowledge about the biodiversity, because it's the core center of this whole environment thing. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Now all the way, not from environment department, but we want to do a vote of thanks. See, we've gotten something, okay? MMU, guys, do you want to say anything? Okay, so let's, hold on. Let's welcome the Deputy President. Oh, you want to say something? Yeah, bwana. Comrades, wisdom.
Comrade wisdom. Comrade wisdom. Ndawapea wisdom nikimaliza. Habari yenu. I'm Hezron Vincent, the treasurer for Musa. Musa is Multimedia Science Students Association. We are glad to come here. Na tumefurahia kuona around. Though we had come for an event. Okay. Here. So, me personally, I've learned a lot about the wild animals and the biodiversity. Elephant is a wild animal. An elephant is a wild animal. So personally, I didn't know the way to track the elephants. So today I've known. And the criteria involved in tracking the elephant, I didn't know. But today I've learned, I've gotten the knowledge. And also I didn't know about those plants which are hazardous to the environment of biodiversity. So today, at least I have the knowledge. So, as multimedia students, tumefurahia kuwa hapa. Then, I don't have much to say. Thank you. Wisdom imepotea.
Have a hands of clap for.
Then my members are requesting.
Good. You know, as facilitators, as lecturers, when you see a comrade becoming or having more wisdom in him, we have to make sure that we add more thinking into our heads. So when you see comrades wanting to take over the floor, and I know most of us have never been on campus. Okay? So the next program that we have, I'm requesting all the online audience to put on their videos when they can. We are going to do a group photo, and this is going to be in 2 ways. The online audience will do their group photo, and then the physical audience will move out there and do a group photo. After that, we'll come back as comrades and do our responsibility. See, you know that responsibility? Now, before we do that, we were having legal week this week, okay? And we want to welcome the Deputy President of Wikano, who is also the communication director in the student government. Where is he? I know he's a busy, yes, he's here. To do a vote of thanks to our guests and also the audience online and physical. Then after that, can we have 1 minute? After that, we'll take a group photo with the online audience. Then we move out at the corridor, do a physical photo, group photo, then come back in a line and do our responsibilities. Indio? Asante sana.
Good evening. I'm here to do the vote of thanks. My name is Shamaya Kloa Zanjala. I'm the, just in relation to whatever we are doing here, I'm the vice chairperson of the Wildlife and Environmental Club of Africa Nazarene. So first of all, I would like to thank Dr. FESTUS IHWAGI. who is actually senior scientist in the GIS department. I would like to say that all of us here have enjoyed and have gained the knowledge, and you've been impactful towards our our insights in terms of environment, in terms of biodiversity, which is in relation to climate change, and that has been great of you. We actually appreciate. Secondly, I'd like to send my our gratitude to Dr. Jones, who is actually the chair in the Environment Department of African Nazarene, and this also goes to the whole department of ERM, which is actually helpful and impactful towards biodiversity. I would like to also thank Professor John Henry, who is first our club patron. He's also a professor in environmental management. Further from that, I would like to thank the university department, university management, for giving us space towards hosting this thing and also having people to come here. Away from that, I would like to thank the Multimedia University School of Science. It's the School of Science, right? So Multimedia University School of Science, and to Dr. Festus, they actually have a good platform towards biodiversity. They have an extension of the wildlife, so it's easier to conduct. When you consider those research proposals, it's easier to work with them because it's actually an extension, because that will enable us to have better academia in terms of biodiversity, both in biodiversity loss and biodiversity management. Further from that, I would like to thank the Wildlife Environmental Club of African Nazarene University members, all of them who are here. I actually appreciate you all. I would like also to thank the media team, the media department, who are actually airing these both in YouTube and in the Google Meet. We appreciate your services. It's actually a sacrifice that maybe is guaranteed to us. Away from that, there's some students from Karatina who are actually in the Zoom meeting. We also appreciate you. And everyone in the online department. I think we have the I don't have time management. Lastly, they are not here maybe, but I would like to thank the La Sala team. I think they have not yet performed their magic or something, but we can share the gratitude because that's one of the things that may have brought some of us here. So I would like to appreciate the La Sala department for whatever the miracle they're going to do here. Away from that, I would like just each and every person to clap an applause for all of us here. Can we just clap? Thank you. Thank you, thank you. Thank you, that's all.
Okay, so I'll ask everyone who is on Zoom to please put on their video as I do this group photo. So in the count of 3, I will ask you to smile to the camera. Okay? Thank you, Saina. Thank you, Lucy. Tisa, we are waiting for you. James, Okelo, Tabi, we are waiting for you for your video. Juni. Okay. So I'm taking the count of 3, 2, 1. Go. So, second photo, Amros, thank you. We are waiting for Ian Jeru. Vincent, we are waiting for you. Juni. Juni, we are waiting for you. Thank you so much. Okay. So the last photo in the count of 3. The last photo in the count of 3, 2. You can also wave to them so that, because you are in the photo, in the count of 3, 2, 1, go. We can wave.
Okay, let's bow down our heads for prayer. Almighty God, we thank you for this day. We thank you for this meeting. It has been a successful one. We pray that as we end this meeting, we might all get to implement what we have learned here, and that you might give us the grace to be able to protect our biodiversity. In Jesus' name I do pray, trusting and believing.
Amen. Thank you so much. Let's all move to this corridor for our group photo at the end. Okay? Then after that, hello? Hello? This guy makes noise in the WhatsApp, and physically you're still making noise here. You, okay? Tulia. So we need to prioritize MMU guys so that they serve first. Okay? They'll have a campus tour. So for the multimedia guys, your vehicle will be leaving at 6:40. See, 20 minutes is okay for a campus tour. So 6:40, let's meet at the gate. But immediately after the photo, come and serve. Then you have your tour. Asanteni sana. May God bless you. So let's all move. Thank you so much, audience, for online. Have a blessed day or evening.